Hello, everyone. Welcome to day 2 of the Asia for Animals Coalition's third series of AfA Connect. It's great to see you all here today. On behalf of AfA and our members, thank you all for joining us. My name is Ursula, and I am the events coordinator under the AfA Coalition. As we begin, let's take a moment to cover some important housekeeping matters, and this will only take a few minutes of your time. First and foremost, this event is being live streamed on YouTube and will remain there for people to have the opportunity to watch later. So after this event, the link to the YouTube playlist will be shared via email. Please make sure to switch off your camera and microphone, as some participants may be joining us from areas with limited internet connectivity, so keeping cameras off can improve their live streaming experience. For those joining via Zoom, if you want to enable the auto captions, which is an auto translation feature, click More at the bottom of your Zoom screen and then click on Captions and set your language to the language that you wish to be translated. Please also set your screen name to the name that you registered with so we can check who has been able to join us today. And it's also good for us to know, like, hi, saying hi to you, this and that. Last but not least, if you have any questions, please place them in the chat box in either Zoom, if you are joining us in Zoom, or in YouTube, if you are viewing from there. And this will be collated by our team members, and we will address as many as we can during the sessions. Now, a little bit of introduction of who we are. The Asia for Animals Coalition is not only the largest animal protection network in Asia, but by membership, we are also the largest animal protection network in the world. AfA is composed of 26 core member organizations representing a diverse array of animal protection and advocacy organizations. And there are more than 300 organizations in our network. The team has undergone a dramatic growth in the past few years, and we are now a dedicated team of 18 staff coordinators across 6 countries, all dedicating to help organizations to help animals. At its core, AfA is about uniting voices for the animals of Asia. We also help organizations to collaborate in various ways, for example, in investigations, campaigns, and in reports. We also provide a platform for sharing of resources, knowledge, experience, and we act as a central point for networking and connecting. The movement to help animals is stronger when we are united and when we collaborate. That's what we believe. And by working together, we can be more efficient and have a bigger, better impact. So in order to concentrate on specific areas of interest, AfA organizes 7 working groups. These groups allow our members to collaborate on various aspects of animal advocacy, such as social media, animal cruelty, policy work, capacity in animal protection, and issues facing farm animals, macaques, and sanctuaries and rescue centers.
Great. Okay, I'm going to share my screen to do the introduction for the session in the main room. Bear with me 1 second. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here today for a session entitled Catching Online Animal Cruelty Perpetrators in the Real World. And this is hosted by the AfA Social Media Animal Cruelty Coalition, or SMACC for short. So just a little bit about SMACC. We are a coalition of 29 member organisations, and we've seen significant growth in the number of organisations joining SMACC, but also this is a reflection on the increasing knowledge of this issue in the public domain and in the need for us to come together to work on tackling this truly global problem. And you'll see some of the fantastic organisations that are members here. So before we get into the presentations today, just a warning that some of the images and topics addressed here can be distressing. We haven't put anything too graphic, but of course, if you need to leave the session at all, then that is absolutely fine. So we have been running a survey since last year, which is literally a few questions about your experience of seeing animal cruelty content online. If you'd like to take part in that, there is the QR code here for you now, or the bit.ly link that you can follow. We will also have this up again in the slides at the break, I believe, if you want to take part. And this will just help us in some research that we're doing. So yeah, it's very short. Hopefully you can do that. I'll just give a second for anybody that might be trying to interact with this. Okay, so let's meet today's speakers. My name is Nicola O'Brien. I am the lead coordinator of SMACC, and I'm really pleased to be joined today by, first of all, Connie Chiang, who is the co-founder and executive director of Taiwan SPCA. Connie was born in Taiwan, but grew up in Vancouver, Canada. And after graduating with a communications degree, she moved back to Taiwan and founded the Taiwan SPCA in 2009. Connie is currently the executive director and leads the organization in helping animals by focusing on cruelty investigations, advocacy campaigns, and animal welfare education. And Taiwan SPCA are one of our members of SMACC and have been for a number of years. Our second speaker is Fouke Postma from the Netherlands, and Fouke is an investigator and a trainer at the organisation Bellingcat. Bellingcat is an independent investigative collective of researchers, investigators, and citizen journalists brought together by a passion for open source research. Founded in 2014, they've pioneered the use of open source research methods to investigate a variety of subjects of public interest. Fouke has a background in conflict analysis and has an interest in human rights, security, intelligence, and the illegal wildlife trade. So in today's session, we're going to take you through these four main sections. First of all, I'm going to talk about SMACC's role and how we deal with reports of cruelty content from members of the public, how we work with local NGOs, and to bring this into focus of the bigger picture of what SMACC is trying to achieve. Then we'll pass to Connie for an NGO experience of investigating online perpetrators and the challenges they face, looking at the role of social media platforms and the public. Then we'll move on to Fouke, who's going to give us a really interesting talk about the use of online technology and how this has been used to investigate online perpetrators of wildlife crime and its application to cruelty content. And finally, we're going to have a Q&A section, which will be open to all attendees. So please do post your questions in the chat throughout the session and our team will collate those. Okay, so getting into SMACC's role, investigating online animal cruelty. So first of all, we just want to cover off what is animal cruelty content. So SMACC says this is any content that depicts anything that's been posted on a social media platform by an individual, organisation or business that depicts animal cruelty or suffering for any reason apart from valid campaigning, journalistic or educational purposes. And this does cover a wide range of types of cruelty because we don't just look at tackling obvious physical violence towards animals, but also psychological suffering, long-term suffering that animals may endure from being in a situation that is bad for them. And so here we can see some images of just some of the kinds of things that we find on social media. As you can see, there's a wide range of animals being used, wild and domesticated animals. Often we see endangered species, and it also crosses over a whole range of other forms of animal cruelty and suffering. So things like the wildlife trade, animals being used as props in entertainment and performance. To tackle this, SMACC focuses extensively on collecting research and information. We want to maintain a really solid database of this information, and we believe that we do have the most comprehensive database of this type in the world. And we rely heavily on our fantastic group of volunteers who are pretty much daily going online and looking for cruelty content, and often having to witness some really awful content and things happening to animals. But their information is so crucial to all of our work. We also have a public reporting form where members of the public who find cruelty content can also submit it to us. And all of this goes into our database. And this is just a snapshot of the kind of things that you can see on our database. We obviously are looking, we have the links, we're looking for the channels. We also collect screenshots of what's happening in the videos so that we don't have to keep looking at the link. And so we've got a record of that. You can see we have a variety of themes of the types of content, and these are chosen by the volunteers and the public to say what kind of cruelty is happening. And we're also looking at specific abuses. We want to know what animals are involved, and if possible, the countries that are involved as well. So we're collecting a lot of data here. And if we just have a quick look at the information from January 1st this year to just last week, we've had 51,000 reports of cruelty content from social media platforms. And most of these are on 5 main platforms, and you won't be surprised to see the names of some of these, the biggest ones used globally: Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter, or X as we now know it. And we found 16 total themes of cruelty, with 5 top themes being animals used as entertainers, deliberate physical torture to animals, fake rescue of animals, monkey hatred, and wild animals kept as pets. And if you want more information on these types of themes and some examples of how they manifest online, you can visit our website. We have a definitions page. Haven't got time for that today, but I think this gives a good impression of what's there. I think one of the main things I wanted to show here is that we have 51,000 reports is a great deal. And obviously, we don't check every individual report, but it all feeds into our database. And I just want to quickly go over here some of the many ways in which the data is used. So public awareness is a huge part of what we do. We want to educate the public of how to identify cruelty and what to do when they see it. We also want to use this data is a crucial part of our work, which is engaging with social media platforms themselves to get them to improve their policies and their moderation so that there isn't a literal platform for this content. So the data that we use as evidence when we're talking to the platforms to say, this is what's on your platforms, this is what people are not happy about, it shouldn't be there, they're reporting it to you, they're reporting it to us, let's do something about this. And we can identify cruelty trends as well. We can see what kind of content is popular and what is growing potentially. And in our work with social media platforms, we're also trying to convince them to assist NGOs where they can when looking at things like investigations. And so our support for NGOs, as well as them being part of SMACC, and we work collaboratively on things like lobbying the platforms, on public awareness, they can use our data and have access to our database. And we have worked with a number of NGOs in providing evidence for lobbying for laws that are putting more responsibility on social media platforms to deal with content. And of course, the focus of today's session is about NGO local investigations. And our role here is that we are a conduit that can take information supplied by the public and given to NGOs that may be able to do investigations. So here is the sort of flow that SMACC follows. We receive report from the public. As I mentioned, we get 51,000 in just the last 8 months or so. So we're not looking at every single link that's sent, but sometimes we do get more in-depth reports from members of the public, or there may be links that stand out to us that are relevant. So our first action is to assess the content, because it needs to have the information to be able to be viable for further investigation. So the sorts of things that we're looking at and when we're assessing content are these, and this might be helpful for those that want to look into content further. So is the information easy to understand and digest, first of all? Does it have any detail beyond screenshots or links of the cruelty? Because we really need detail for this to be usable. Does it contain clear evidence on the country or locale of where the content was created? Which of course is so important if we're going to pass this on to an NGO who's in that country. Is there an understanding of the laws in that country and how the cruelty in the content relates to them? Because unfortunately, sometimes there is the position where there isn't a law that outlaws what's happening, even though we know it's cruelty and we know it needs to end. That is a really important tool that needs to be present. Which species are involved? Does the evidence show clear links to the possible perpetrator or creator, which would be the best scenario? And has it been reported to the platforms already, or other local law enforcement or NGOs? And crucially, thinking about that the NGOs need as much information as possible to be able to pursue an investigation. So going back to our flow, that's our assessment. And obviously part of what we do is also look at what could SMACC do. Can we escalate this to a social media platform for removal as an initial thing? Once we decide that, yes, we've got enough information, then comes the role of us identifying NGOs that might be able to take this on as an investigation. And you'll notice that I have said on the assess content and identifying NGO that this may be where the process is blocked. And this isn't to be negative, but it's just to show that at these stages are really crucial in this being able to follow through to an investigation on the ground. Because we've got to identify an NGO in the country, they need to have the relevant laws to be able to tackle the content, but also crucially, they need to have capacity to be able to do an investigation. And it is really frustrating for us and for these NGOs who are working on so many animal issues already, and they need, the reality is, do they have the resources to be able to investigate? If they can, then fantastic, and we happily share that information, and we'll then go into our role of assisting the NGO in any way that we can, which will include talking to the social media platforms if that is appropriate. And one of the issues is that organizations often face is getting information from the platforms that can assist them in their investigation. So I've brought us back to this page because, yes, supporting local investigations with solid reports from the public is a really important action. However, these are all the ways that information is used in the bigger picture of tackling cruelty content. So it does lead to investigations where possible, but there's all these other important ways that we are tackling the problem. So every report really does count. And just to remind everyone of SMACC's 5 steps, you'll see reporting is our final step here, and it is so important. So be aware, do not watch, do not engage, do not share the content, and really importantly, report it to the platforms and report it to SMACC. Thank you. Okay, so now I'm going to pass this over to Connie when I can see how to stop sharing my screen. Honey, it's over to you now. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicola. Nicola, are you going to help me share my presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
Arcilla's doing that, so yeah.
Thank you everyone for attending this session. I'm happy to be here to speak with you. Next slide, please. I'm going to start my presentation by giving you a little bit of a background information. So at the Taiwan SPCA, one of the work that we do is we conduct cruelty investigations and welfare inspections. So on average, we receive about 600 to 700 cases of reports each year, and this is all from members of the public. And mainly this involves the improper rearing of animals, cases involving direct physical harm, for example, beating animals, causing injuries. So out of the cases reported to us, and these are numbers from 2019, was only about 6%. And we also receive a variety of other complaints, such as illegal pet abandonment, the use of traps, illegal puppy mills, etc. Next slide. And a brief explanation of Taiwan's Animal Protection Act. So there are 3 situations where there would be considered a criminal offense. So in Article 25, for example, if someone deliberately kills or harms an animal causing severe physical harm or death, would be considered a criminal offense. Article 25-1, if multiple animals are killed using poison or firearm. And 27-1, the dissemination of media content that shows the abuse or killing of animals. So in these 3 situations, and for certain online content, the district prosecutor's office does and should get involved. So next slide. So when we see online animal cruelty, I'm sure many of you perhaps are wondering, well, what can be done? Some action can be taken. So first, with social media, the platforms all obviously, they have a role in this. And also members of the public also have a role in combating this problem. Next. So first with social media, okay, what I believe is what they should be doing and doing so actively is 1, to remove the content and page, number 2, to ban the user, and 3, to aid law enforcement. But in reality, it is not always the case here in Taiwan. Although many of the biggest platforms do have some policies related to harm against animals, however, they largely focus on direct physical abuse. And this also has to be clearly visible in the video. So this means that an animal showing injuries or fear responses or in poor conditions may not always fall into this category. And also, animal cruelty is usually not clearly defined in these policies. So many content, they're not flagged or taken seriously by these platforms. And furthermore, social media giant Meta, who owns Facebook, Instagram, at least in Taiwan, we know that they do not work with law enforcement. So even if the police or animal protection authorities ask them to provide user information, they will usually not cooperate. And this is because Meta only provides information to law enforcement, including involving 9 types of crime. So this does not include animal cruelty. So other crimes like homicide, kidnapping, larceny, fraud, etc., would be covered, but not animal cruelty. So really the problem here in Taiwan is with Meta, and I think around the world as well, because other social media platforms tend to cooperate more with the police. And here we receive reports of online cruelty involving a variety of situations. For example, dog eating, dogs locked in a car, abuse of macaques, keeping wild animals as pets. And with these online cases, it's often very hard to find the perpetrators just by viewing a video or photo. Next. So what we're trying to do here is that we are trying to push through legislation that will make it mandatory for media platforms to work with law enforcement when it comes to animal abuse content, and also to make it their responsibility to take down the content instead of what they're doing now is relying on public reports. And recently, we were able to convince a legislator of the KMT party to propose an amendment to Article 27-1 of our Animal Protection Act. So the language is shown on the screen. So we're hoping that this will allow relevant authorities to require content creators, platform providers, and online service providers to remove illegal content and keep all relevant information to be provided to authorities when asked. And this comes with a penalty as well. So this legislator actually held a public hearing actually just last week regarding her proposed amendments. And actually at the hearing, discussions on this amendment was not raised at the hearing, which is actually a good thing. Which this means that basically nobody is against it, nobody has any further questions. Next. And also, our Ministry of Agriculture actually had a meeting with stakeholders and animal protection NGOs back in April of this year to discuss their own amendments to the Animal Protection Act. And at the meeting, I actually did raise the issue of online cruelty against animals and suggested the need for platform companies to have more responsibility in terms of the law. And good news is last week as well, I got word from the ministry that they have added in an amendment regarding this in their own revisions to the APA. And this is really exciting because if the Ministry of Agriculture agrees to this and have their own revisions, this will probably pass in committee. And so hopefully during the next committee hearing that this will be discussed, and we're hoping by the end of this year. And finally, of course, when lobbying, it's also important to achieve bipartisan support. So we also visited another political party and told them about the growing issue of online animal cruelty. And they were all very shocked to hear this. So I believe they may also propose their own amendment as well. Next. So going on to the role of the public. So Nicola has mentioned SMACC's 5-step process. So I'm not going to go over this in detail, but I think just to emphasize maybe on the be aware part of this, there's a lot of information on SMACC's website, which is very, very helpful, very useful. And I think the more members of the public understand and learn about different animal issues, I think it's easier for people to be able to spot cruelty online, because sometimes the cruelty is not so obvious. For example, we may see like a slow loris being tickled, but if we're aware, we will know that this is not, they're reacting in an unnatural way. Or monkeys dressed in clothing, some people may think that it's cute or it's natural, but to us, it's not. There's a lot of suffering that goes on behind the scenes. So being aware is very, very important. Next. And also, we think it's very important for groups in different countries to try to catch these people, these perpetrators. But there are challenges, and one of the biggest challenges facing social media regulation is jurisdiction. So some forms of animal cruelty or exploitation may be legal in some countries, but then illegal in another. And also some severe forms of animal cruelty videos are often shared in private groups, which is even harder to infiltrate these groups, but it's not impossible, but just very difficult. So I've listed out some useful evidence and clues that I think you can try to look for in the content that may help to build a case. So, for example, it's very crucial to try to identify the country, even better, the city of where the abuse is happening, so you know who to reach out to for help and who to report it to. But this too, I know it can be extremely difficult. Sometimes the post may be seen by friends or family of the creator. So there's still a chance that the person's name, workplace, or school can be found. And these are all very helpful information if you can get it. You can also try to look for clues in the video or photo. For example, the language that's spoken in the video, or if there are any words written down in the video. We've had success looking, finding license plate numbers in videos, and the pictures on my slide. This is a postage stamp on a box that we found in the corner of a live stream video that allowed us to determine that the abuse was actually happening in China and not Taiwan, because they use simplified characters whereas we use traditional Chinese characters. And also you can try to look for clues in the person's friends list. They may be tagged, in other content that may show their location or provide you with some other information. Also try looking in the comments section for, some peculiar comments. Sometimes the perpetrator will pretend to be someone else and leave comments to try to get reaction from people. And I have a case example in a bit I can share with you. And finally, you can also look for other public posts the person may have shared across other platforms. There may be clues there as well. Okay, so next, I'm going to share with you 3 case examples from here in Taiwan. And just a warning, there are some graphic images, not that many, but just be aware. Okay, next. Okay, so this case example 1, so this was a case where hamsters were being severely abused, thrown in hot oil. So there was this person who was leaving really hateful comments on a rodent rescue group's YouTube channel. So this person was leaving really negative comments on every video. And then so people started like noticing this person and clicking into this person's profile. It linked to their YouTube channel where these videos were uploaded. And actually on the channel, the perpetrator actually left an address and a line ID in the About section, but they were fake. I think he was just getting a kick out of it, trying to, leaving fake information. And then a lot of people online and even a news outlet reported on this. And this was also reported to the government animal protection authorities and the police. And we actually reported to the authorities as well. They actually told us that they think the case won't go very far because Meta does not provide information to law enforcement, but they were still willing to try to report it to the police. But after reporting it, we received no updates at all. The channel was taken down very quickly after the news media reported on it. It's good that the content was deleted, and probably because the person feared repercussions. However, of course, we want to try to catch this person to prevent more animals from being harmed. But it seems that even the police have a very hard time dealing with social media companies. And something interesting also to note from this case, the person uploading the content. So like I said before, he or she was really leaving many comments, on different videos, trying to get people's attention. And, they want people to take notice of them. So that's why SMACC suggests that, not to engage with these type of content, not to share, not to leave comments, not to click like. And the next case example was a case from 2020. So this is another example of where the person who owns this page is thriving on all the attention that he's getting. So people were leaving like angry emojis and negative comments and sharing the post. So you can see almost 2,000 people clicked the angry emoji. So this was a case where this person was posting very suggestive photos of animal abuse and, leaving comments, poking fun, trying to be funny. And actually this photo of the Chihuahua that you see on here, this photo was actually stolen from someone else's page. So the owner actually came across this and she was very angry and started leaving comments, on this post. And then in the comment section, you can see that someone was replying to this owner and very actively replying as well. And turns out he was the owner of this page and he was using a different account name to interact with people. And then the good thing is someone else in the comment section, it's kind of confusing, but someone else in the comment section ratted him out and gave out his full name. So the Chihuahua's owner was able to identify this person, find where he went to school, his high school, got in touch with the school, got in touch with this person, but of course, he denied it. And after that, the page was quickly deleted. But then a new page popped up. So he started another page and then using the same photos. So we helped by reporting this to the police as well. And we actually even wrote an official letter from the Taiwan SPCA to the Ministry of Agriculture, but they couldn't do anything. So this case went as far as it did, only because someone stood up and like his friend knew him, stood up, let us know who this person was. But yeah, it was still very hard for even the government to do anything about this. Next, my final case example, a bit more successful. So this was a case, a recent case from this year. This was reported to us by a fellow SMACC member, Action for Primates. So they suspected that the woman who was uploading these videos of macaque torture is Taiwanese. So she had been posting these videos in a private group on Facebook. And though there was not much information about this lady online, we were able to find who her husband was, what he did for work. We found places he's performed at. He's a DJ. And then we collected all this information. We gave all this information to the police. And we also got a macaque expert to look at these videos. And she could tell that there were several species of macaques featured in all these different videos and a lot of baby macaques. But none of them had Formosan rock macaques, which are Taiwanese native species. So it was likely that these videos were not taken here in Taiwan. But it's still illegal to be sharing this type of content. So when we reported the case, we still asked the police to investigate whether or not she was the one causing the harm. And what I did was I also got someone from a political party here to make a call to the Central Police Agency to ask about this case, because we were afraid that the police would not take this seriously as they should. And this is from past experiences. So I made this report about 3 months ago, and I just got notice from the district prosecutor's office last week that they have found a woman. She admitted to the crime of sharing abuse content. So at least a number of 26 videos were found. However, the prosecutor decided to settle with a deferred prosecution agreement with 1 year probation and a fine of 30,000 Taiwanese dollars, which is only about $1,000 US. So deferred prosecution means that, yes, by legal means, what she did was illegal. However, prosecutors can make this decision not to prosecute, provided that the person meets certain specified conditions. So she has to pay a fine and she's on probation for a year. So with this case, even though the person was found, she was not charged with anything, which is very frustrating, of course. So I mean, it's still very challenging to actually get police or prosecutors to take these forms of cases as more seriously. And we're still trying to change legislation and also maybe try to increase these fines. Next, so my final slide is a summary. Asila, you can just, keep, maybe, thank you. So one, don't give content creators what they want. So again, don't comment, don't share, don't like, don't engage. So with my two case examples, it really, they thrive on all the engagement. Report to these platforms. I know sometimes you may not see these posts taken down very quickly, but please still report it because these platforms need to know how serious the issue is. And third, provide information, if you can, that may lead to the arrest of the perpetrators. So if you can find anything at all, these are all very important information. And next, one more, I think two more. And at SMACC, we're trying to lobby social media companies, asking them to improve their policies, improve their technology. It's not easy, but we're working hard. And also change legislation, which I think is crucial. So I think that we need to have laws in place to require platforms to cooperate with law enforcement and making it legal obligation for them to do so, so we can catch these people quicker and easier and more effectively. Yeah, next. Thank you. I think that's the end of my presentation.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Connie. Yeah, there was some difficult things in there, but just so important to show the process of investigations and some of the challenges that you've faced at Taiwan SPCA. So thank you very much for that. Okay, so I'm now going to pass on to Fouquet.
Hi, I'm here. I'll
Brilliant.
start sharing.
Thank you.
So yeah, thanks for these very interesting presentations. I think my presentation really follows on to what you guys have been doing and look at this content and try to identify the perpetrators. So I work for an organization called Bellingcat. We are journalists, but we're also an NGO. We're not a company. And to explain our work, I usually start with a little exercise. And that is asking people to look at this picture and then try to figure out for themselves, do you know where this is, right? Could you figure out where this is based purely on this photo? And as you can see, there's not much there, right? But this is a question that we at Bellingcat very often deal with, like trying to figure out where photos were taken. Now, why would you want to know where this photo was taken? This photo came from a series of child abuse images online. And we found the location, actually, because in a photo, there's always more information than people realize. In this case, stuff like something that looks like a boat, the mangroves, even something as small as a little rock that it casts a shadow by the sun's direction can be used to identify the location eventually. It takes some work, but we can do it at Bellingcat, and we've become very adept at trying to develop methodologies to do these kinds of investigations. So what we do is we try to develop these methodologies and then write guides, stories, articles, and teach these methodologies to as many people as possible. That is basically why we exist and what we do the entire time. So we investigate, and then we train people how to do these investigations. All for, well, we publish our guides for free, and we sustain ourselves through paid trainings and donations. And that leads to a lot of stories. Some of them have been groundbreaking in terms of conflict stories. So we do a lot of work in Ukraine, with Gaza right now, and with police violence. And of course, that's why I'm here. We're also moving into trying to identify the perpetrators of online animal abuse. So this started with a photo I came across simply by scrolling Instagram a couple of years back. This man, Memphis Depay, he is a Dutch soccer player. He posed with a lion cub in his house in Dubai. And people in the Netherlands were angry about this, but Memphis said, well, this little lion cub came from a zoo. So, you know, it's all fine. And I was wondering what kind of zoo hands out a lion cub to a random celebrity to take home, right? So that's where this interest started. And I simply began by searching YouTube for Dubai tiger lion. Quickly came across celebrities like this one, Movlogs. He has 10 million subscribers. Nowadays, probably more. And he uploads content using, you know, baby tigers, baby lions. And he thanked a account, MBE777. And obviously, looking for this tag, right? That's what you do. I came across all these celebrities in Dubai who were have millions of followers and who would tag this account again and again. And if you look closely, you'll find that it also continuously is the same kind of tiger or animal that was being passed around, taken away for photo shoots and these social media influencer content videos. And so in this case, I'm using the stripes on the forehead, but you can use all kinds of details, obviously, to track this tiger cub. And so the MBE777 account was actually set to private, despite being tagged by all these celebrities. So we use fake accounts to do these kind of investigations. I requested to follow him. And then we saw this. Basically, it's like a store window where you have all these young animals, lots of different tiger cubs, lion cubs, also cheetah cubs, in what you could only see indoor rooms, right? So these tiles, this particular couch thing, and there were no names, no faces, not any voices, but people were commenting, asking for how much. So there was definitely indications that he was just selling these animals. And by going through the people he was engaging with online, like the people who followed his account there, I came across a woman who was also posting the same kind of couch and animals. And she was a bit less careful, and she posted a view from a window. And later on, when I found different accounts from her, I saw an even better view from the window. And then on the right here, you see how we can identify the location, right? So by seeing these features that she sees from the window, we can easily figure out, oh, you are in this apartment building, quite high up at like the 13th floor. And that's where you keep all these tiger and lion cubs and cheetah cubs over the span of 2 years, like dozens of these animals. And we want to pin a face on this person, right? So again, going back to all this content and going through them, at some point you will find that for tiny moments in the videos that tagged MBE777, you could sometimes see these two faces. And the more we looked into it, the more we realized those are the people who are behind this account, MBE777. And the man on the right is called Safari Dubai. He's still posting. And by looking through Safari Dubai's account, the guy dressed in white, we found that he had this sort of private zoo, is what they call it in Dubai. Basically a large garden with a lot of exotic animals, wild animals in there. And on his profile, he was simply showing them and telling them how much he was taking care of them. But I found his phone number, and searching for that phone number, we also found advertisements where he was anonymously trying to sell the same animals he was saying that he was just raising at his private zoo. So he was definitely also dealing in animals, apart from also providing them to influencers. And moreover, he also had a lion at his home. And by comparing details of that lion, I eventually came back to the picture that started this sort of investigation, because this lion is a more adult version of the same lion cub that the celebrity had in his home. So another example of him renting out his lion. And we do this by comparing, for example, the whisker spots. And this is just one short case study of investigating this online content, right? And it's a relatively shallow example of what we do. So in this case, we only use YouTube, Instagram, Google, and Google Maps. And we start from a post and we figure out eventually the faces, the names, the addresses of these people who are behind this content. But this can go quite complex in terms of our methodology, because we can also use, for example, facial recognition technology, where we upload a photo of someone's face and search the entire web for wherever this face might appear else, maybe different photos or social media accounts under a different name. We also have the ability now to task satellites to take photos for us, in case we want to, get a better view of an area or a house somewhere remotely. And all of this information we try to use to uncover eventually the real perpetrators of online animal abuse. And so this process, what we do, where we look very closely at an environment, details in an environment, to figure out where it actually is on Earth. We call that geolocation, and that's where we train people in, and what we do ourselves the entire time. Like I said, usually for conflict areas and human rights violations, but now also for animal abuse. Meaning, even if you have footage that even has small details, and you are desperate to find out where it is somewhere on the planet, even if you don't know the country, we can try and find the location, and oftentimes we're able to find the location if we have enough time to do our investigations. And then in this case, we also use pattern matching. So in this case, for the tiger cubs, left is a screen grab of an influencer video where these tiger cubs were being used and played around with. And on the right is content from a zoo in Dubai. And both of them never acknowledge each other. Like, the influencer won't say, we got this tiger cub from a zoo. The zoo will never say, we hand this tiger cub out of the zoo to influencers to do whatever they want with them. But by looking very closely at details, we can see that it's the same animal that's being passed around. So just a very short case study. And this is what we call open source investigations, because we only use basically tools that are available on the internet. In theory, if you have an internet connection and you read our stories or our guides, you should be able to do the same, right? You should be able to follow along and do this investigation on your own. And what we find is that this really attracts a lot of people who want to help us. volunteers. So we have, for example, a Discord community that has right now about 30,000 people in it. And they're mostly talking about conflict because that's where we started out. But we're also trying to build up the animal welfare bit of that network. And we train and help people to do these investigations on their own. And what we see is that the more people we involve, the larger our capacity becomes to investigate all of these different stories, because there's so much content out there, right? And just to go back to that earlier investigation, the case study that I showed you, after publishing the story, this secretive account deleted his Instagram account, which has like tens of thousands of followers. So there is some effect to it, even in the United Emirates, where it's, you know, difficult to get the police to go after people who might do wrong from our perspective. So yeah, that's basically what we try to do, what I'm trying to do. And I would love to connect with anyone who's willing to share methodologies or know content, places of content that really need some investigation done. And like I said, the aim is for me to expand our knowledge of what's going on, and also the methodology on how we can investigate this and share this as broadly and widely as we can in order to help stop this kind of content. So that's very shortly what I try to do and what we try to do at Bellingcat. And I'm happy to take any of your questions.
Lovely. Thank you so much. That was super interesting. Even, you know, knowing exactly how you do these things, having read it already, it's really great to see that in a presentation. I'm sure people will be just fascinated by some of the techniques that you've mentioned there. Yes, brilliant. Okay, thank you. We're now going to move on to the Q&A section of our session. So that will be me, Fouquet, and Connie, please. Okay. Brilliant. So we've had some questions coming in. I'm going to start with one for Connie. But let's do this as much of a chat as we can. So, you know, if at any point you'd want to jump in with something, let's do that. It's a nicer vibe. So, the question from a participant was, when do you think you are in the phase of, yes, we can move forward with this online cruelty case to real investigation? So I'm imagining what the question is, how do you know that you've got enough information that it's worth pursuing an investigation? And this is actually really important for SMACC when we are doing that assessment of information of like, do we think there's enough here that an NGO would be able to move forward?
Yeah. I think the first thing, the most important to begin with, is we have to know where it's happening. So, which country? So we've gotten reports in the past where people thought it was happening in Taiwan, but we did some digging and it was not. There are other situations where, like, we don't know where it's happening. So if we don't have the location, very difficult, can't do anything. It's best if we can get the city, because in Taiwan, we have different animal authorities in different cities. We have tried, you know, just by knowing that it's happening in Taiwan without the city, we've tried reporting the case, but law enforcement will always tell us, well, can you give us the city? Which city? It's a lot of times we just don't have that information, so the case stops there. It is best if we can get a full name. That's very, very difficult as well. So with these successful ones that we were able to pursue, we were able to find the name of the person and where they work or the school they went to. If we don't have that information, unfortunately, it's very, very difficult to keep going. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Going back to the things that we were saying in my part of the presentation, is that is something that we find as well, how we gauge what is actually useful, because all the information that we receive is really useful for SMACC's wider work, but in terms of investigation, has it got the detail? Because we're aware of not wanting to pass that on to an NGO who then is like, we'd love to go into this further, but this is going to require a lot of work on our part to even see if we can find out who this person might be, or where they're located, for example. So,
yeah, just to add to that, like, I think the most difficult again is with Meta, because with other platforms here in Taiwan, authorities have told us as long as you can get the city, the location, they can still try to ask the social media platforms to provide information. But with Meta, it's impossible. So that's why we're trying to push legislation at this point in time. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Which goes back to that sort of bigger picture part of, the issue. We need all those different elements to be able to increase the success of doing investigations. But Fouquet, some of the things that you mentioned in your talk, again, I was minded of the fact that often NGOs and even within SMACC, we do not have the skills or the expertise in the team of some of the tactics that you mentioned that might aid in our work. And I think that's something that NGOs have said to us. This is all fairly new, particularly coming into the animal welfare world. So yeah, I wondered if you had anything to say on that.
No, that's I've identified that gap as well, and the strange thing is that it doesn't have to be, because none of the things I've done were very difficult. It's just that you need to know, for example, how to find the right information from a Facebook account without having to go through Meta, right? There are ways, or finding the exact location from a photo. If you learn these techniques, you can become very skilled at it. And the thing is that we've done this a lot for, like I said, conflict and human rights newsrooms. So, for example, there are several former Bellingcat employees who now work at the New York Times, and they do great work there, doing similar kind of work that we did at Bellingcat. But it's just that there's not enough overlap yet between what the methodologies that are already widespread in sort of the conflict and human rights reporting compared to the animal welfare investigations. And I see a lot of potential to do some crossover, cross-pollination, and share these techniques. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think there would be great demand for that, for sure. So I'm really pleased that we can start bringing those connections through this session. This leads on to a nice question, actually, for you, Fouquet. In an online world where we can almost access all information, how do we navigate between doing ethical and safe investigation and not doing something that might be dangerous or privacy violation or potentially illegal in some countries?
Yeah, that really depends on the subject matter, and especially also the country you live in, right? So what we do is we do make fake accounts, we join private groups, but we never talk to people at all. Because for us as journalists, that would be crossing a ethical line where you pretend to be someone else you're not. So for us, that's a line, but that's not a law per se, right? If you are devoted to catching those perpetrators, and you're not a journalist, and you might pretend to be someone. So it all depends on how far you are willing to go. And the same goes for accessing content. Some people, for example, I do find it difficult to see animals get tortured, for example. And I know that if I'm entering this area, I have a lot of methods that I can use. So I turn my screen to grayscale, gray colors. I turn audio off. I keep my hand in front of the screen for the parts I don't want to see. There are all these ways that you can help alleviate the potential injury, whether it's mentally or legally. But it really depends on the person who's doing the investigation and how comfortable you're willing to go. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean that's a part of a point of conversation that we always end up with when sort of moving into that element of mental health and looking after yourself, because investigating things like this for anybody, no matter what level you're at, someone who's seen it online up to an NGO really going into deep investigation. This stuff is not nice. So at SMACC we do say things like don't have the sound on when you're watching these videos, but yeah, the grayscale suggestion is also really great. Just anything to sort of dampen how the intensity of what you're seeing.
Yep. And this is also part of the guides and resources that we try to draft. We've actually written a guide for dealing with traumatic imagery footage, and when you want to do these kind of investigations. And also we obviously warn a lot of people that want to help, that volunteer, about the potential images that they might see, because yeah, okay. Now I saw the question. Can people contribute voluntarily in Bellingcat to exposing this kind of crime? And what is the risk and mitigation for this action, which sort of follows on this question? Yes, people voluntarily contribute a lot in our Discord. Sometimes they even end up publishing and then getting a career from their voluntary actions, which is very cool. And we help them along with their investigations as well. But there's also risk. The risks that we just described that you mentioned, Nicola, harmful imagery. Also, you have to be careful not to leave your own digital footprints to your own personal accounts and IP address or actual home. You always have to be careful with that. We also try to train our volunteers in that. So there's both risks and rewards for volunteering, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, great. We have put a link to your website somewhere in the chat. Oh, yeah, there we go.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Amanda's put a new one. Okay, so a question for Connie. What do you think is the best way to push the government and in law enforcement to take animal cruelty seriously online? That's a pretty big question, I guess, but
yeah. Again, I think if it's in the law, they will take it seriously. And also there have been situations where, for example, if a case goes viral or if a lot of people's talking about it, I know it's kind of contradictory to what we're trying to educate as SMACC, right? Like don't engage, don't share it, don't comment. But in certain situations, if the case gets a lot of publicity, usually authorities here or police here, what I would say is try harder to try to catch the perpetrators. So yeah, I think there's a fine line. Like I know some people share the content. If you share the content with the goal of trying to get more information, asking people, do you know this person? Or can anybody provide more information? I think in certain situations that can help, but I think that people still have to be responsible in doing so. For example, if you're sharing something with the aim of trying to get more information, you should at least tell people, hey, don't engage with the original content. Educate them. Don't click emojis, don't comment. But if you have information, do a private message or in that way, I think, yeah, be responsible if you're trying to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, there is I think there's a very clear difference between you having to engage with the content in some ways to be able to do the research or the investigation. Like SMACC does have to look at the videos, and our volunteers do as well, but we have guidelines around how to limit that interaction, and also try to control that interaction in a way, and that it's hopefully only being done by a very limited number of people to be able to get the information that they need for, the research and the investigation itself. So I think, yeah, that is a really good point. Like, doesn't say that changes our advice at all. It's really important that people follow that is informed by our knowledge of how social media works and what makes the content more popular and basically exacerbates the problem, as you've shown in some of your cases. But yeah, I did see that there was a comment earlier similarly about in Indonesia that sort of virality of content can get the attention of lawmakers. So maybe it's that we need to find other ways of making the content viral, if you like, in the sense that rather than it just being shared a lot on social media, that, we can bring something like that to the press where appropriate, and maybe make a point of it that, but the focus being on the platforms haven't done anything about it, and it shouldn't have been on the platform. So the focus is there rather than it's still getting big attention, but it's not necessarily means that it's being shared all over social media. Hope they can share our story would be, the ideal scenario. But yes, I think something else that I wanted to add there was in the UK, we have successfully lobbied for animal cruelty content to be included in a new Online Safety Act that was designed to protect users online from harmful content. And initially, animal content wasn't included in that, but SMACC and a whole range of organizations came together and did lobby for that. And it was included because the focus was on the harm to the viewer, and in particular, children and vulnerable people. So it was that element that got the government interested. And of course, there was a big on investigation as well alongside that, where into the monkey torture, which didn't require the content to go viral, but it was still big public ways of getting their attention, of one, the severity of what was in that investigation, but then two, the fact that could have that link to harming viewers. So utilizing the sort of human side of it as well as the animal cruelty.
Yeah. I mean, here, when I was trying to lobby legislators, a lot of them didn't know about this issue. So just by showing them, explaining to them the severity of these cases, a lot of them are automatically, they're like, oh, this is horrible, we need to change the law. So I think if you're trying to, maybe other NGOs trying to lobby, just make visits to these legislators, explain to them what's happening and the challenges that we're facing now. And you'd be surprised, a lot of them would be willing to back up a bill or be supportive with this issue. It's just a lot of them don't know what's happening.
Yeah, and we find that across the board with knowledge around this cruelty content online. A lot of people don't realize that it's a problem. Okay, so another question was, how do trends set by celebrities and influencers affect the demand for exotic pets and the broader issue of animals exploitation online?
I know from my research that talking to experts who study this is that there is a significant effect of people posing with wild animals, and then other people seeing that content and thinking, oh, if I want to be popular or successful, I should also get involved with that, or copycat behavior where another influencer sees that content and thinks, oh, I also want that many likes. Let's get a tiger or a lion cub to pose with. So there is definitely a sort of like an oil spill effect where one person can start this and then everybody starts sort of copycat behavior. Yeah, and gets involved in a similar kind of abuse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there have been some studies focus on particular species which haven't necessarily looked directly at influencers, but have looked at content showing a particular species as pets, and then looking at the sentiment in the comments with people sort of saying, wow, where do I get one? I want one as a pet, and maybe being introduced to animals, wild animals that they've never considered as a pet before.
Mhm.
And it is something that we covered in one of our reports, and I think again really highlights that link between content just showing wild animals as pets and then the trade itself.
Yeah, and especially again, just from this case study, I know that the trade in cheetah cubs is driven significantly by the fact that influencers like to pose with cheetahs and cheetah cubs. Yeah, so the poaching starts like in the Horn of Africa, and then they get smuggled into the Middle East for these stupid Instagram posts. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, a specific question to do with your example, Fouquet, is someone asked if the perpetrators in Dubai were reported to local authorities.
Yeah, so for the first story on them, I got in touch with a local NGO, and they filed a thing to the local authorities. But at the same time, the bar for expectations was very low, right? Because we're dealing with wealthy and influential people, and the culture in terms of how to treat animals, and this thing about private zoos is also very different than we are accustomed to. So not much happened, but a report was made. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. So we've had a question here in the chat. Is there SMACC educational content people can share themselves to help educate others rather than sharing the actual videos? That is a great suggestion. We do have a range of videos called Ask Yourself. And in these, they're small videos that don't use any actual cruelty footage, but they are covering a different forms of cruelty content that you might expect. So primates, for example, elephants, fake rescue, and they give examples of what you might see and gives some pointers around, questions basically around, does the animal, if it's a young infant animal, are they with their mothers? Why not? Are they in an environment that you would expect to find that animal? And so they're just questions to sort of get people thinking about what it is they're actually seeing in content online. So yeah, Amanda's put a link to that as well in the chat. But Connie mentioned there is a whole range of resources, and also for NGOs to use as well. We launched an NGO toolkit earlier this year, which has got lots of videos, social media images, frequently asked questions that, to help NGOs be able to do some advocacy on this issue as well. Okay, we did have a question. Is it recommended for the public to do their own investigations with the help of open source technology? And how far is the reach of the information that we can gather with this?
Yeah. I mean, depends on it all depends on the investigation, really. You can get really far using just what's out there without any, specific fancy paid tools if you devote yourself to it, for sure. What was the other part of the question? Sorry.
How far can you go with it? Is the main point of the question. Yeah.
Yeah, no, so yeah, pretty far is the answer, definitely, all the way up to finding a person's name and address, or uncovering an entire network.
And what
Yeah.
would you say is the sort of, it might be hard to answer, but in terms of like a time, how long do these things take?
So you become better at identifying details over time, right? So, for example, if you show me a picture of a room, I'll in my head I'm already looking for like specific sockets on the wall to identify the country, or small detail stickers maybe somewhere on a closet that could show me a city or a football club. So it's very difficult to estimate. It also depends, if I'm trying to do an investigation in Indonesia, it will take me longer than in the Netherlands, because it's a different context. But if I work with an Indonesian volunteer, then they might very quickly spot certain details that are very specific to a certain region, or so it's very difficult to say. Like, I've spent months looking at a single doorknob for but also I've uncovered networks in like a couple of hours. So yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, someone said some clever things. Yeah, looking at the plug socket, I would never think about that. So that's really interesting. Okay, I think we're about to wrap up. So just if there's any final points, Connie, if there's anything you want to add or say, and Fuke as well, before we finish.
I mean, I think SMACC's website has a lot of useful information for people to, be educated about. Like I said, I think a lot of cases that people are like, they would think that it's animal cruelty if there's physical abuse, but there are also other types of cruelty and abuse that's happening that's not so obvious. So wild animals as pets, or teasing of animals, or fake rescues. I think the more people are educated on it, the more helpful it will be, to try to flag these content, or to try to catch these people. So yeah, I encourage everyone to go on SMACC's website.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and I would just love to get in touch with people. And if you come across very egregious content that you want someone else to have a look at to see if I can help, feel free to share. I'm always open for that.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you both so much for that. It was a fantastic session. And yeah, if you've got any more questions for our speakers, please feel free to email SMACC, and we can pass those on. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
you. Back to you, Ursula.
Thank you, Nicola.
Yes, just to repeat what I said in my section of the talk, we do have this survey. It's super quick, just to give you your experience of animal cruelty content on social media. So if you can just scan the QR code, or we can put the link in the chat as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicola. Thank you for sharing that. And that was indeed a very insightful and had a lot of information as well for that session. So round of applause to everyone. You all can use the clapping emoji. Yay! Right. So we would like to take this opportunity to share with you our upcoming AfA Connect event that is slated for this year. The fourth and last AfA Connect for this year is happening on the 12th to 13th November 2024. Registration for AfA Connect 4 will be open soon. So for more information, please log on to asiaforanimals.com AfA.com/connect. We have several in-person events happening as well. We have the Asia from Animal Day happening in Hanoi from October 9 to 11. And the Farm Animal Coalition will be having their third regional event soon in India, and the date is to be confirmed. Many more exciting projects and other events coming in 2025. We have the Asia for Animals Conference Taipei 2025 happening from August 25th to 29th at Taipei, Taiwan. So if you'd like to know more about our events, please head to asiaforanimals.com/events. And if you like, you can subscribe to our mailing list to get the latest information about our events. The AfA podcast. Did you know that we have launched the AfA podcast this year? Yes, we did. And I highly recommend that you give it a listen. The episodes released so far are excellent, featuring guest speakers from all around the globe who share their experiences and updates. So activate your hearing buds at asiaforanimals.com/podcast.
Thank you so much, Ursula. Okay. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone's still waking up. And welcome to AfA CONNECT 2024. This year, we are celebrating the theme, the power of community, sharing skills, experiences, and resources. And in this session, we are thrilled to have you with us today in this inspiring session focused on the victories achieved by grassroots groups across Asia in changing hearts and minds about urban macaques. The dedication and passion of these groups are driving meaningful change, fostering a future where humans and macaques coexist in harmony. And before that, let me introduce myself. My name is Amanda Faradiva. I'm the MC or host for today's session, and I'm the coordinator for the Macaque Coalition and the Social Media Animal Cruelty Coalition. I'm based in Indonesia. And before we begin, I want to remind you that any pictures or visuals displayed during this session are for educational purpose only. So please keep this in mind as we proceed. And without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce the speaker for today's session. Both of them are incredible. So our first speaker is Pranitha Monipi, a wildlife biologist, conservationist, animal welfare worker, and activist who is deeply committed to fostering human-wildlife coexistence in India. Pranitha brings a wealth of experience with her double postgraduate qualification in conservation sciences and her hands-on expertise as a trained wildlife rehabilitator. Her work is centered around in situ community-led conservation measures, focusing on habitat management and the interconnected welfare of people, the planet, and the animals. And today, Pranitha will share her insights on how grassroots conservationists are making a real difference from ground up, influencing policy change through a bottom-up approach. And next one, we have Dr. Jo Lin Yap, a passionate wildlife researcher, environmental educator, and certified Malaysian regional nature guide. Dr. Yap is not only dedicated to research, but also to practical solutions that enhance human-wildlife coexistence. She led her team, the Langor Project Penang, she led her team in successfully installing Malaysia's first 2 road canopy bridges in Penang, a groundbreaking initiative that provides safer crossings for arboreal wildlife. And Dr. Yap's work extends to grassroots capacity building through environmental education and citizen science collaborations. Her efforts are instrumental in nurturing coexistence between people and monkeys, especially in urban settings. And today she will share her experiences and the successes achieved through community engagement. And after that, we are going to have discussions moderated by Brooke and Co from AfA Coalition. So please feel free to write up your question in the chat box. So please join me in welcoming Pranitha Monipi. Pranitha, are you here?
Hi, yes, I'm here. Am I visible and audible?
Yes, I cannot see you yet. Wait a second. Yes, perfect. Stage is
Perfect.
yours.
Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen. Right. So this is also visible.
Yes, perfect. Can you try to make it full screen?
Does this work?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. All right. So, hi everyone. Thank you so much for having me here, and thank you so much for being here as well. My name is Pranita, and thank you, Amanda, for that wonderful introduction. So, I've done many hats, but I recently started my nonprofit. It's not even a year old yet. I've been doing working for wildlife quite independently and collaborating with other organizations so far. So, as part of Advaya's initiative, Advaya is my nonprofit. The first project that we're working on is the Bonnet Macaque One Health project. Now, the reason this started was a lot of things. I grew up, we're based in Mysore in South India, and I grew up here. I've been raised here. I've been raised with the monkeys and with the people, but this wouldn't have been possible without the communities over there and without the support of my co-founder and my friends as well. And we also received a first grant in the first 6 months to go through with our macaque conservation implementation. So, India is a country where we have 1.4 billion people and a few more. We are very rich in our culture, as well as in the number of people, as well as in the number of animals and plants that we have. We have 8 macaque species and 4 hotspots. Out of the world 36, we have 4 in India. And of those 8 macaque species, we have 2 that are endemic to South India. We have the bonnet macaques and the lion-tailed macaques. And my project specifically focuses on the bonnet macaques itself. So they are separated from the rhesus macaques of northern and central India, and they span only the southern part, the Deccan region of India. So there are many layers to how human macaque relationships exist in India. One, there's a very deep religious and cultural affinity that people have with macaques. So one of them being, people believe that the macaques are reincarnations of Lord Hanuman. Hanuman is the monkey god in Hindu mythology, and they believe that these macaques are reincarnations of them. So if we feed them, so many people believe that they will be blessed and it is a good deed and it will bring them good things and good fortune when they're fed. Now, considering the rapid rate of expansion and urbanization and development and agricultural expansion happening, the habitat is degrading at a massive rate, and especially in urban regions, it leads to a lot of conflict because we have macaques who are commensal. They have adapted over many years to live alongside humans, whether it's in rural areas, urban or peri-urban areas. And when they're not provisioned, if they do not have enough food, they tend to forage on crops. Now, because there's so much overlap in spaces, along with crop foraging and foraging on waste bins, we have open bins in India. Not a lot of them are closed, and even those that are, it's very easy for the macaques to get into them. Now, considering all of this and them being commensal combined with the fact that people do tend to feed them, they're considered as vermin or pest species. Now, ideally speaking, bonnet macaques are listed as vulnerable and the numbers are decreasing. They are endemic species. But because they are so abundantly visible and they're so adaptive and commensal in urban spaces, um, I'm sorry about the puppy howling. I just had a puppy who got his surgery done this morning. He had a road accident. But anyway, coming back, so we have these macaques being considered as vermin and pests because people are not really aware that oh, these are endemic species. They don't exist anywhere. It's a shock. It's a surprise to many people. And they think that just because we can see them, they're abundant. I usually get a lot of reactions from people saying, Madam, you're studying monkeys? Like, really? That's the reaction I get. And people laugh at me. The other side of it is religious and profit from provisioning. Now, what happens is a lot of people want to provision or feed macaques based on the belief that good fortune will come to them by feeding, or, it's just a good omen and their curses will be lifted, or there won't be any bad omens. But what happens is that, especially in temple tourist sites, the reason macaques hang around in temple tourist sites is because this cultural and religious affinity has led to an increase in provisioning. But on the other side, people believe that, oh my God, the monkeys are near temples, so they also want to be here. They revere God and they're also religious. But what happens is there is an additional ecosystem that gets created, which is the profit that people make from provisioning them. There are a lot of shopkeepers, especially what I see in my project site. Uh, so they do not inform the tourists or the visitors or the devotees that you shouldn't feed them, or you should keep your belongings safe, because when the macaques, they're so accustomed to getting fed by humans, when they do approach anybody carrying anything in the hand, they approach them and they try to snatch things from their hand, even if it's just an empty bag. They want to see what's in it. What happens is everything that's in the hand gets snatched by the macaques, and then the people revert back to those shops and go for a second round of buying, whether it's a water bottle, whether they want to purchase food, whether they want to purchase ice cream. So people make a lot of profit, and it's a mini ecosystem that happens there. And because of this, the interactions so far have not been great. While religious affinities, for a fair part, I would say, for a fair bit, they have helped us protect our species. They've helped people respect and maintain a good relationship. It's also resulted in a lot of negative interactions. And provisioning, especially, has resulted in so many conflicts. And I'll show you how this works. So when macaques get provision, they get so accustomed to it. One, there are obviously health and welfare risks. We are still studying and trying to understand what exactly are the medical diagnosis. But as far as we can see, there is gastrointestinal distension, there is extreme obesity, there is really, really bad skin infections, as you can see in the first one. And in some of the monkeys, it's so bad that they cannot walk. Like, to walk 100 meters or to forage 100 meters of grass, they rest for maybe like 4 or 5 times in between. They cannot travel with their troop, they cannot climb up, and that makes them really susceptible to being around dogs or being around vehicles, which ultimately leads to mortality or other diseases when they're around domesticated animals. The second thing is a lot of loss of limb. The adults tend to get very aggressive because they're so often provisioned, that when the younger ones do go near them, you can, especially in my project site, at least half of them don't have an arm, a leg, a tail, part of their noses are bitten off. And this is problematic in terms of mate selection for reproduction as well. So it definitely has a huge impact on population stability. And the next one being conflicts or negative interactions. Now, the thing is, it's easy to make money from people feeding macaques, but what happens is macaques are very smart. They're very intelligent animals. They see and they know that this is exactly where I can get food from, even when tourists are not there. So they tend to go into shops and they forage inside shops and pull out all the edibles over there. Or if they do snatch bags from visitors or devotees, people over there, they have long sticks. You can see in the last picture, they have long sticks and they beat them up. Sometimes they also poison them, and they call the forest department and they say, the monkeys are being a menace, you really need to do something. And a lot of relocations, unscientific relocations under the media happen. And there is no information on where the macaques are going, whether they're healthy, whether they're alive, what impact it can have on the ecosystem or resident macaque troops in the other region that they're actually getting released in. So again, there are two layers to this. One, they're so often fed. I've noticed that so much food is wasted. The macaques are so full at times that they don't even want to take any more food. But because so many people come and they want to feed them, they want the macaques to take food from their hands. It's not even just giving it to them. Some people do come, they just throw it and go away. It's like we're doing some favor to the macaques. But otherwise, the people who want to feed them by hand, they want the macaques to they want to have close interactions with the macaques. And you can see in the first picture that macaque is not really happy. They feel their boundaries are not respected. And in the second one, the infants get extremely familiar and comfortable, and they try to jump on and snatch bags and covers or anything that a person is holding. This usually leads to getting scratched by, and some visitors have also been bitten by the macaques, and then the macaques are blamed for the same. But nobody really considers the fact that they're being fed, which is why all of this is happening. And the idea that macaques are just bad and they're a menace, that tends to go deeper into the mindsets and lifestyles of people. And the consequences so far, the graph that you see here, Mysore is the town that my project is based in, and Chamundi Hills is my project site. So Chamundi Hills is a very well-known tourist site. We get millions of visitors every year, and I am not even exaggerating that number. And we hardly have 250 to 300 macaques of 2 or 3 subtroops individually. And as keystone species, it impacts so much because they're not they're not fulfilling their ecological role of seed dispersers, and the habitat is impacted, the ecosystem health is impacted. And we do see a 78% population decline in this region since 1994, and that is a lot. And according to the CDC and WHO, up to 20% of animal bites across the world from monkeys. And in India, the second only to dog bites. But outside of all of the research and the numbers and the statistics that we're seeing, the picture that you see here, those were 50 macaques that were poisoned and they were buried, and some of them were actually buried alive. Now, this is the result of macaque conflicts. So, which is why I started the Macaque project. But even before I started the Bonnet Macaque One Health project, I have previously worked in the region because people and macaques live so closely together. And because it is a tourist site and it's a religious tourist site, there are several people who capture monkeys. And the 2 infants that you see here, they were confiscated, rehabilitated, and then released. They were reintegrated with the troop, which was quite surprising because I wasn't sure if the reintegration would be possible, but maybe because they were really young, I was able to do that. The entire area, then we managed to place spacers, and then we got everybody, all the wires insulated, sorry. And the macaque that was electrocuted as well. So this was a 3-month-old macaque who was electrocuted, and he needed extensive rehabilitation, and then they were released. But this is also the reason that communities there know me and are willing to work with me. But even with all of this, when I started the project, when I started the BMOH project, there were a lot of challenges. It was when I first went to the forest department, I was laughed out of the room. I went to them and I told them, this is an issue and I have some ideas and maybe we can also look into rehabilitation. Of course, we have to consider the impact on the social structure as well. But it was a dialogue in progress. And I was told, why are you wasting your skills on monkeys? Like, who cares about monkeys? Why don't you use your research skills to mitigate leopard and elephant conflict and I was laughed out of the room. And when I went to the people, I was told the forest department won't care. We have tried so hard. Nobody comes and does any habitat management. And when there is excessive pressure, the monkeys just get relocated. And sometimes, just sometimes, maybe 1 out of 10 times, a local newspaper picks it up and they publish and say that the monkeys were being a menace and they were trapped and they were released. But for people who undergo losses because of the provisioning of macaques, the monkeys tend to go into homes, into shops, and they do forage and destroy a lot of items. There is no acknowledgement. They are not provided a compensation. They are not provided an alternative. So the people retaliate. So when their livelihood depends on it, can we really blame them? Or can we turn a blind eye to what the macaques are facing? And when you talk to visitors who are feeding them, that is a different ballgame altogether. And it's also much more difficult when you're not or rather when you're a young woman. So there was this person who told me, there's this veterinary doctor who said it's okay to feed monkeys biscuits because it has no sugar. And then he said he saw it on Google. And nobody thinks that provisioning is a serious issue. This is one of the bigger challenges that I have faced. They think the general idea is that macaques don't get enough food. There is not enough natural food for them. And that is why we are feeding them. And even if we don't feed them all the chips and biscuits or the bread or anything, even if it's just fruits like bananas, it's not a big deal. And you shouldn't really be worried about this. And there were also government officials who told me macaques are in Schedule 1, so we cannot allow the conservation implementation program, which is ironic and counterintuitive. Macaques are not in Schedule 1, actually, but they were, before the 2023 April amendment, they were considered vermin species, but now they've been moved to Schedule 2. And the problem is that nobody thinks this is a serious enough issue. So after I got laughed out and after I got told all of these things, I said, you know what? I'm going to do some serious data collection. So 2 months of intensive data collection, prepared a report and a proposal, and it was submitted to the Karnataka Forest Department. And we also have some prototype monkey-proof bins that we are developing. We've taken inspiration from multiple projects that people are working on, and we definitely want to acknowledge them in this because this is not completely our own. It is a modified version of what so many people are doing, and we are yet to test it. But the solution comes when we address challenges inclusively, or when in a country like India, where everything is so integrated, the people and the monkeys and religion and culture and livelihoods and politics and bureaucracy, everything is integrated and they're so deeply embedded with each other. We have to address challenges inclusively. I cannot just go and say, hey, you know what, I'm here for the macaques and you should not feed them and you should not do this. They will say, you know what, take your monkeys and go away. They're really not going to care about it. So that's why this approach is happening. So with the One Health approach, what I'm doing is addressing biodiversity health. We are considering macaque health and welfare, and we're conducting research on how provisioning impacts them, including collecting the droppings of monkeys and doing a biochemical analysis, and also comparing how infant behavior, because we've also seen this. We have 2 different troops, less than 10 kilometers from each other. One of them in my project site, they're highly provisioned, and the other troop, they're not really provisioned at all. They're quite natural and, naturally foraging animals. And we noticed a significant difference that the infants in my project site were actually much more clingy to the mothers, and they would not vocalize, and they would just, the mothers would also not allow them very far. Whereas a troop with similar aged infants, the infants were much healthier. They did not seem really afraid, or, the mothers just allowed them, and they were quite vocal, which was quite surprising for me. So we're also looking into that. Second is ecosystem health. One of our next approaches is to survey the area. We're doing research on what the plant composition, the species composition, and what the diet, etc., has been for the last 15 to 20 years. And we're doing research on what the macaques prefer eating, because we do see that they're provisioned the entire day. But once it's nearing sunset and not a lot of people are there, they tend to feed on species of plants that have digestive remedial properties, which we also use as home remedies a lot in India for young children. So we're assuming that this could be a factor. And we are also collaborating with the City Greening Council and the Gram Panchayat, which is the local council in Chamundi Hills, which is my project site. And with them, we are developing this entire habitat management program where we plant more habitat, we plant more diet species, and we reduce provisioning, and we also have monkey-proof bins. And the third most important thing is community health and employment. So for starters, we want the community to be involved with us. We want them to have job security, because in wildlife conservation, there's not a lot of financial or job security, especially not for local communities. And you realize there are two sides to conservation, and there's so much pure conservation where people want to just keep, local native communities out of it, but it doesn't work. At least I don't believe that that is conservation. You have to work with the people. They know what happens on their lands. They're connected to their lands, and it may not always be favorable, but we just cannot do it exclusive of each other. So employing local communities and providing them job security, and the local monkey catcher that I spoke about a few slides ago. So including him in our rehabilitation processes is a challenge for sure, but it is an approach that we are having a conversation about. And he's actually open to it. And he said, I really love monkeys, and if you can give me money to, catch them and treat them, then I would do it. So we're still doing that. But we're going to follow up with education and engagement. And we have impact monitoring teams where the community people, they get trained in how to collect data, how to fill in our research sheets, whether it's ethograms, whether it's following the troop and seeing what they're eating, whether it's talking to people, all of that, they're getting trained in that. And then they become the impact monitoring teams. They go and talk to people and they say, hey, you know what, you're not supposed to feed them. And having people who live right there do that, enthusiastically do that, is, I think, one of the biggest advantages that we have right now. But this is all still a pilot project, right? It's only been 6 months that we've started this. We're going to do this for a year, and then we have to adapt accordingly as we move forward, because the challenges are going to change. They're going to become bigger as we want more policy and impact changes to happen. So we distributed the work that we're doing. We established the project, got our permissions, and we spoke to everybody. We got our collaborations in place, got our grant funding, and then was the groundwork and employment, which was basically research and training and telling people why we're doing this, and getting a little bit of traction going. So rehabilitation and implementation. Rehabilitation is something we're still on the fence about, because there is so much plastic disposal. We are not sure. It's going to take a little while for us to address the plastic disposal and make it a completely plastic-free zone. That's going to take a few more months. But in the meanwhile, the infants have been playing around, and some of them do get the plastic caps lodged in their buckle pouches, and they often keep playing with it. But we're not really sure if we should be, intruding in their social circle. Is that something, their social hierarchy, or is that something we can do in situ if it's not very deeply lodged? So these are conversations we're having with veterinary doctors and experienced rehabilitators and other nonprofits as well. Then we're going to continue with monitoring and education and engagement. Now, after all of this, after months of waiting on the research proposal permits, we finally got it. We got our permits for research and implementation. Now, one of the advantages here is, although it's a temple tourist site, although the macaques have been there and there is a cultural and religious affinity, Chamundi Hills is already a wildlife reserve. So what we're doing is trying to push on that. So we said, it's already a wildlife reserve and we do have wildlife there. So, hey, why not make a difference with something that's already there? The impact so far,
Sorry to
we are
interrupt.
developing.
Sorry to interrupt, Pranitha. Just to say, yeah, just need to wrap things up.
Yeah,
That's
of
possible,
course.
please. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm almost at the end of it. Yeah. So the impact so far, we're filming a documentary, and a lot of people get intrigued and they say, oh, what's happening? And can we come on camera? And that's also one of the biggest ways that we get them engaging and speaking. And we finished the first session of filming the documentary. Now, this is basically to tell people, make more people aware of what's happening, why protecting macaques is important, and also to push for policy changes to regulate provisioning as well as declare it a protected area for the macaques itself. We are carrying out 2 research projects for habitat management and the efficiency of our monkey-proof bin. But most importantly, through the work that we've been doing, we've heard that, we had no idea that this was the problem. We had no idea that monkeys actually find food, or how can we help, and can we come and join you? So this has been the impact so far, and it's encouraging, it's empowering. And our overall impact has been one of the biggest mindset challenges that we face in conservation, especially in urban regions, is that conservation happens very far. It happens in the Himalayas, it happens in the Amazon. Nobody really considers that conservation can happen in urban sectors, wherever you are. So the bigger impact is making conservation attainable and accessible for people wherever they are, telling them that no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, your actions do matter, and you can help conserve. You don't have to particularly go anywhere. You don't have to spend money. By not doing certain things or by educating people on certain things, you are having a huge impact. And we're also one of the very few pioneering conservation programs for least concerned species or vermin species. And we're pushing really hard for some policy change and regulating provisioning and scaling up. We have over 100 sites just in my state that have temple tourist sites like this with human macaque interactions and conflicts because of provisioning them. So we want to replicate this model, tailor it according to the problems that exist there. But this is a completely replicable model that we're building. And we hope that one day throughout India, we can have this model, and I call it a conservation livelihood network, because while doing in situ conservation, we're also focusing on financial security for the people, and we can work together. So the biggest thing for me, at least, is addressing root causes, because if we do rehabilitation, we're going to do it always. If we keep doing research, great, but I think for me, something has to come out of it. And if we can build a place or a project or a site where it doesn't have to come to that, and we can prevent it coming to that in the first place, then we would have done something right. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Pranitha, for your presentation. And I really agree with the One Health approach. It's almost like one of the best way to promote coexistence. And yeah, it is quite ironic that sometimes people are thinking that macaque are like less important species, where they are not. They're incredible one. So, and thank you again for your incredible work and good luck to Advaya, and get well soon to the puppy. And okay, move to the next incredible speaker, Dr. Julin Yap. Are you here, Dr. Jo?
Hi, Amanda. How are you? Can you hear me well? All good?
Yes, perfect. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. The stage is yours.
All right. Amanda, can you see my screen?
Yes, perfect.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jolene, and thank you so much to AFA for having me for this talk. And I'm speaking all the way from Penang, Malaysia. And after hearing so many amazing speakers talking about the animal welfare as well as the importance of coexisting with the animals around us, I would like to focus more on conservation and conversation that we have around us with the people and the wildlife. And by using the just close to a year research and conservation project that my team and I established alongside with the Long-tailed Macaque project. So I'm from Langer Project Penang Hub. And so this is the summary of the work that we do in this organization. So we're actually not an NGO. We're a primate conservation enterprise in Penang, Malaysia. And we aim to promote coexistence among humans and urban wildlife of all through community science and environmental education. Hence, throughout these 20 minutes of sharing, I would like to focus a lot on the citizen science as well as the importance of environmental education. So this is our core team. I am also a Malaysian regional nature guide, which I would bring tourists into national park and talk to them about the importance of rainforests and coexisting with the wildlife neighbors. And in this room, we also have Joey and Hui. They are my assistants. So if you have any questions regarding the slides that I'm going to present for the next 15 to 20 minutes, please feel free to type in the chat group, and Joey and Hui will definitely assist you. All right, so a little bit about our work, especially the pillars. So we have 3 pillars in Langer Project Penang, short form as LPP. First would be citizen science-based fieldwork. So basically more than 90% of our team is actually made up of citizen scientists of different background and demographic. So they volunteer their time with us, and we train them by starting by teaching them how to use a pair of binoculars and as well as handheld GPS, and teach them how to identify monkey genders and how to identify the sex age classes of the wildlife species. And this helps them to develop more empathy and curiosity towards the wildlife neighbors around them, especially the macaques. And through that, they are able to help us to collect data regarding the ecology and behaviors of the primate species. And we also have the scientific conservation approach, which is our second pillar, the Canopy Bridge project. For LPP, we have installed the first 2 road canopy bridges in Malaysia, located in 2 different urban areas in Penang, where we install it for the main purpose of reducing roadkill of the arboreal species. As you can see on this slide over here, even though it's only displaying a dusky langurs, but please stay along with me, which I'm going to show you a picture of the long-tailed macaque crossing on the Canopy Bridge. So it shows the 2 different settings of the Canopy Bridge that we have installed in Penang with 2 different designs. And so far, it had helped more than 2 to 3 groups of monkeys around the area to cross the road safely, and also squirrels, reptiles, and even birds perching on the Canopy Bridges as well. And our third pillar would be environmental education. And this is divided into 2 different parts. First would be engaging with tourism sites, as well as schools and community groups to organize ecotourism environmental education. This includes not only walking into the forest and talk about the trees, the food plants of the monkeys, but we also bring environmental education into the school, which later I'm going to elaborate more, because environmental education has to be inclusive. So we bring them into the forest, and we also bring forest material into the schools as well. And the second part of the environmental education would be community engagement. So we conduct a lot of talking with the residents as well as various stakeholders on the ground before proposing for a certain environmental education campaign, or even conservation strategies to nurture human macaques coexistence on the ground. So it involves a lot of negotiation as well as presenting data, especially for our research, to convince people of all ages and all backgrounds to understand a little bit more about the importance of science-based evidence. So this is Penang, Malaysia in a general view. So as you can resonate, this also applies to many, many cities and towns in Southeast Asia. So we're located here in Peninsular Malaysia. If you zoom in, or even you fly a drone towards the nearest town and cities in Penang, you realize that Penang, Malaysia is surrounded by the hills and the sea, a very convenient neighborhood which takes 5 minutes to the closest hill for a short trekking trip, or even a 10-minute drive to the closest mall, and a 30-minute drive to the closest coastal area. So in Penang, Malaysia, we are blessed with nature. However, here comes the question, can we really coexist with the wildlife neighbors around us? And these are some of the photos of the common urban monkeys that we can find in Penang, Malaysia. Malaysia is blessed with 26 species of primates. And in Penang, we have 4 common types of monkeys where you can see them during daytime, around the trees, in the gardens, around your neighborhood. Yeah. So we start with the langurs, because I started off as a science communicator and a leaf monkey researchers, and then slowly moved into macaques. Just started last year on macaque studies. And we have 2 common species of langurs that we can find in Penang, starting by the my flagship species that I started my PhD on, the dusky langurs, and also the silvery langur. And next up, we have the macaques. So long-tailed macaques and the southern pigtail macaque. For information, southern pigtail macaques, they are not native in Malaysia. They are not native in Penang, Malaysia. However, there have been a recent dumping case where people would release wild or even former pets of pigtail macaques into different recreational forests of Penang, Malaysia. Hence, we're able to record data through citizen science urban sightings, various different locations in Penang, Malaysia, where pigtail macaques has been observed. So these are some of the photos that compiles the problems that our primate neighbors face in various cities and towns, urban setting in Southeast Asia. And I'm using Penang, Malaysia as a context. And all these photos are taken in various neighborhood areas in Penang. Yeah. First would be deforestation and leads to habitat fragmentation, which I'm sure that everyone here is familiarized with roadkills incidents that are due to the root cause of non-sustainable development. And second, of course, everyone been hearing a lot about the illegal wildlife pet trade as well as animal cruelty. And in Malaysia, the macaque and the langur species are still highly traded on social media, even on Facebook and Instagram accounts. And third problem we face would be negative human-primate interaction or even interfaces through food provisioning, waste management, as well as complaints from residents and report to the wildlife authorities, which leads to possible culling or even inhumane trap and translocation procedure. So I just graduated from my PhD just less than 2 years ago. And when I was doing my PhD, I always think that as a wildlife scientist, it's very important to be in the field from the lab and then analyze the data that you collect from the field, and then you graduate and you publish your data to the world to read. Yeah, that's all right. But then, as I was given the opportunity to evolve more towards science communication, I realized that it's very important to focus on people and also conversation. Conservation and conversation, they are all interconnected. So when you talk about citizen science fieldwork, it's also the building blocks towards community engagement. And from citizen science fieldwork, you gather data that are able to help you to engage with the residents and the stakeholders that live near monkeys. And from that, you're able to educate the existing and upcoming generation of people living around us. Especially in Penang, it's a multicultural state, and in Malaysia in general as well. So we've been using various different types of dialects, various different approaches to talk with people of all ages, and also various demographics. So I feel that it's very challenging in terms of communication, in conveying the right message to the targeted community, in terms of helping them to understand and also to pull them, influence them, to get them beyond broad in becoming wildlife advocates. So conversation are the building blocks to conservation, which I have to agree so much that this is one of the main lesson learned throughout my humble 6 to 7 years of wildlife conservation journey. So in LPP, we have 3 main projects ongoing at the same time. I'm going to just take a very brief explanation regarding each project, and we're going to focus on the Macaque project that we just started around a year ago. Yeah, while Joey and Hui will send more information regarding the other projects that display on this slide. Yeah, so we have the first project, Allies Crossing, yeah, which is the first canopy bridge installed in Malaysia, located in Teluk Bahang, Penang. So this bridge was established due to the collaboration with the ecotourism sites as well as the government, and it helps more than 9 species of wildlife to cross roads safely with zero roadkill. And second project, Bridge to Coexist, is also involved rock canopy bridge installation. However, it involved more than that, which is collaboration with local community to develop further humane and sustainable management plan to reduce the negative interfaces between humans and dusky langurs, as well as long-tailed macaques that can be found around the targeted residential area. And third, the project Coexistence for All, where we just started last year, August 2023, with the collaboration with Long-Tail Macaque Project. And this project is focused a lot on conversation, on science communication and environmental education, which involve working with different people of different contexts in order to help people to understand what are the humane ways, what are the humane strategies in order to foster coexistence between humans and the long-tailed macaques around us. So right now, I would like to elaborate a little bit regarding the Coexistence for All project. And this project is funded by Animal Protection Denmark and supported by the Long-Tail Macaque Project. So macaques, they are highly misunderstood. I'm sure that everyone agree on it, especially to all of you in this room. And in Malaysia, of course, we share similar challenges, especially how the media portrayed long-tailed macaque as a very cruel, very aggressive, very cheeky, very naughty macaque species. And all these are the local newspaper clips as well as international clips that been talking about the mischievous and also the aggressive parts of macaques, how macaques injured human infants and how macaques actually attack senior citizens. However, all these stories are just surface, right? It's very important to look beyond what are the triggers, what are the motivators, and what are the different factors and the reason that cause all these negative interfaces to happen. So human macaque interfaces come in all sorts of different approaches, right? I'm sure all of you agree. And for our pilot study of a human macaque interaction, we started off in a small recreational park in Bukit Mertajam, Penang, which is in my hometown. And we started to investigate and look at various interaction between the humans and the macaques over there. So at the recreational parks, we also have people who actually visit there for the purpose of feeding the macaques. And we also have people to visit there to witness the majestic look of the released pigtail macaques, few individuals over there for photography and tourism purpose. And from there, due to the wrong interaction and wrong behavior displayed by the humans towards the wildlife, it caused lots of negative interaction happening on the ground, which you can see at the bottom two photos over here, with injury parts of the human hands, as well as local news clip regarding macaques attacking hikers. So human feeding activities towards the macaques is something that we should really concern about. I'm sure that there are many amazing conservationists around Southeast Asia has been working so hard in order to tackle this problem. However, we have to agree on one thing. Human behavior is the greatest challenge of all. It's very hard to change human behavior. And to be honest, the success rate, it could be very low as well. So it's very important for us to keep an open mind, especially in approaching such issue and challenge on the ground, in trying to understand more regarding the motivation as well as the reason behind each feeding. And as well, when there's a human food provision towards the macaques, and of course you have poor waste management issue occurring around the area. Yeah, so all these images were taken at the entrance of the recreational park and also in the entrance of the recreational park. Even though the signages display do not feed monkeys, even though the logo over there, it doesn't really show a monkey graphic over there, but it shows on the signboard that do not feed monkeys to wildlife. But human behavior is still something that is so hard to tackle, and people still do whatever it please. Same goes to all kinds of conservation issues that we are facing, from marine to terrestrial. So when we talk about working with the community, it comes in a lot of expectation, right? From our personal experience, when we go to a certain neighborhood or a certain recreational park, after we gotten the permission and approval from the authority or the community representative, there's always an expectation. The expectation from the stakeholders that things would be quick fix and also resolved immediately or even a short term of time. But conservation is very complex. It comes in multiple layers, which need multiple approaches in order to achieve the objective that we plan. So all these are the interesting quotes, that we collected from the community members. You're able to read on the screen while you're listening to me. And all these quotes represent the thoughts of the peoples that we would take note to understand more regarding their thoughts, their relationship with the wildlife neighbors around them, and what shapes their perception, and are their perception is shaped by their personal experience or even peer-to-peer influence. So in Language Project Penang, we utilize several approaches towards fostering human and macaques coexistence. First, of course, research. Research can be fun, but also can be boring at the same time. Hence, we try to utilize citizen science approach by recruiting more and more local communities, even though local communities would be communities from different parts of Penang or even northern or even central part of Peninsular Malaysia. As long as any Malaysian, they are interested in investigating more regarding human-macaque relationship, we welcome them. And from there, we're able to collect data on the long-tailed macaques group social behavior, as well as their home range, their food plants, etc. And we also collect data from our existing road canopy bridges on safe crossing for macaques as well, because there are many incidents where macaques they encounter roadkills near the food provision sites, and also there are incidents where macaques would have an overlapping home range situation with other groups of macaques, will cause fights and etc. So we are still investigating how much of an impact our road canopy bridge is actually helping the macaques to cross the road safely. And we also look into the behavior between the dusky langurs and the long-tailed macaques, the sympatric species interaction, where we have been observing a lot of these two different species sharing the resources, as well as grooming each other and even babysit each other's juveniles and infants as well. So all these are very interesting because all these data are the building blocks towards coming up with conservation planning, especially storytelling. And second approach would be community engagement and on-ground ethnography efforts. So we have volunteers of different races, different abilities. So some speak Bahasa Melayu, some speak Mandarin, some speak Hokkien, and some converse in Tamil as well. So we have all our citizen scientists to group together and try to make conservation very inclusive in terms of getting thoughts and perception from people of a various demographic. And these are very important because it helps us to understand the relationship between the local communities and the macaques. So when we talk about the talking with feeders, right, it takes a lot of courage, to be honest. I'm sure that Hui, Joey, or even any one of you have done this before will agree with me. It takes a lot of courage and a lot of understanding and a lot of high EQ level in order to communicate with different feeders of different temperament, etc. And we find this very challenging because feeders are different, most of the time. And it's very important for us to identify the personality of the feeders. And from there, we're able to use the right approach in order to befriend with them. And slowly, hopefully, we're able to influence them for the better. And perception is as stretchy as a rubber band. I would like to call out that it's very important for us to focus on the conversation and do not feel like defeated or even disappointed when people are giving out very, very strong comments regarding negativity about the macaques, etc. It's very important that all these perceptions are temporary and it will change according to the experience and also the influence that they have around them. So it's very important to always be there as a wildlife conservationist, macaque advocate, to show them that you're there and you're there to help, you're there to talk, you're there to be friends with them. And they are able to talk to you regarding anything they have in their mind. And we also survey and advocate for different human-monkey guarding technique. And we learn so much from the local community. Like, for example, on this top left photo over here, we visited a Chinese temple and we realized that the Chinese temple owner, they were so creative because people were complaining about the prayers food displaying on the table and the macaques will go grab the food, right? Because it's like an open opportunity for the macaques to have a feast. So the owner was like, oh yeah, I can just build a portable cage around the prayer table and it solved all the issue. So basically, monkey guarding techniques or even strategies, sometimes it can be expensive, sometimes it can be economic. So it depends on how the people view it as something as convenient or troublesome to establish. So we've been collecting all these different tactics and techniques by the local communities. So it helps us to develop kind of like a guideline to show it to people of different settings in Peninsular Malaysia and what they can do and consider also fulfill with their budget and also their timeline as well in order to reduce the negative interaction with macaque species. So next comes the stakeholders focus group meeting. It's very important for us to gather the data from the ground, the scientific data regarding the ecology and behavior of the macaques, as well as the ethnography data from the community members, and then integrate these two people and monkey information and propose it to the important authorities or the local heroes in this focus group meeting as well. And from there, we're able to propose campaigns, whether is it environmental education or is it the mitigation strategies that we can try on, and then so that the people from the council, people from the politics are able to get together and trying to create a small, impactful difference for the local community. And here comes educational campaign, which I think is very, very important. As wildlife researcher, when I was working on my PhD, I don't really have time to think about the importance of diversify the educational content. Educational content can be on site, but it's also very important to be online as well, because we are actually having a competition with like, for example, celebrity influencer that's sharing about monkey as pets, or even people who are feeding monkeys are viraling this activity on TikTok or even Instagram. I'm sure you've seen that before. So it's very important for us to trying to get to the algorithm by sharing more such information, by tagging each other. Hence, I really appreciate the AfA community where all of us can make a difference online as well. So we organize several campaigns throughout the year, especially this one, the connection campaign. So for this connection campaign, we did not show any human-wildlife negative interaction, human and macaques. We actually show the similarity between the humans and macaques that we face in daily situation. Like, for example, if you follow my cursor, on the first episode, we are talking about the lives of macaques in the morning until the evening. It's very similar to humans as well. Macaque forage and humans will go out to work, and macaques look for food, whether it's in urban area or in the forest. Humans will do the same as well. And second episode is about the facial communication, macaques expression, which associate with the human expression. So all these 6 episodes is available on our Instagram. Hui and Joey can send our Instagram link in the chat group, and all of you can go check it out. Yeah. And for the connection campaign, we also bring the local community members into the Churotokun Recreational Forest, which is our study site, as our study site is actually a beautiful recreational forest that has lots of important food plants of the macaques and the langur species as well. So we bring the local community into the forest, and before we started the whole forest walk, we interview them what they think about the macaques, and they will come out with all sorts of comments, for example, naughty, attack me, etc. But after the 3.5 hours program, the participants actually gave really, really good change in terms of their mindset. So to us, all these are the small minor victories that we were always looking forward to see that changes within the local community and the participants, especially the younger generation.
Hi,
And
Jolene. Sorry to interrupt, but you've got about 5 minutes left.
No problem. I just need 2 minutes. All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Okay. So we recently started the Ada Monyet community sharing. Ada Monyet means there's monkeys. So for these community sharings, we actually recruit and receive application from different community types, and we would provide them a complimentary environmental education session regarding safe interaction with macaques. As you can see over here, open mouth of a pigtail macaque. So we selected school children, families of certain communities, even resident association in dealing with macaque issue, and homeschool community as well, and more. And we are still carry on this campaign on a very, very interesting pace, trying to select the suitable community to work on. And from there, we're able to gather the codes, what they feel regarding the importance of such content to be integrated into their education syllabus, or even as part of their day-to-day learning experience as well. So primate conservation, of course, is about people and our primate neighbors. Of course, we're able to do this in schools and do it through environmental education, but it's very important to provide support to the community leaders over here. On the left over here, this is YB Lee Kailun, Yang Berhormat Lee. So YB Lee, he's the local assessment man in my hometown. So we have been working with him closely in terms of trying to reduce any possibility of inhumane decision by the residents, where residents would complain about macaques to the wildlife authorities where culling may happen. So he would contact us before the reports to authority happens, and we would go over there and talk to the communities. And from there, we were able to stop severe inhumane decision from happening, which I feel that is very important because all this started from conversation. And it's also very important for us to be kind and sincere and trying to talk to people from different backgrounds and trying to invite them to any stakeholders meeting that is available. Like, for example, this uncle over here with the Mashimaro backpack. So this uncle, he was a very interesting man. Initially, he was like a little bit reluctant to hear about what we're doing. But after that, he saw us showing up like almost like few times per week. And he started to befriend with us and talk to us. And when we organized the stakeholder meeting around the park area, and he would attend with his friend and talk to us regarding the macaque issue that happening in his hometown, as well as what we can do in order to foster a better coexisting relationship. And I'm sure all of you are curious about this photo, right? Yeah, so this is Theo. He's our citizen scientist. He successfully convinced the feeder in giving him a bag of bananas, yeah, which was quite interesting, that scenario where he's able to befriend with the feeders, and the feeder was like, okay, all right, grab this bag of banana, and this is for you and your team. Thanks for working so hard. So all this are from kindness and the willing to listen and have an open mind to be integrated as part of the community. So these are just a slide to show you that it's very important to involve people of all ages in the community as part of your citizen science project, and so that we can really make an impactful difference locally and grassroots level. All right, and this is one of the final slides. I'm almost done. So we're also trying to maintain connection with the community, not only on sites where we have residents would treat us breakfast when they saw us observing monkeys in their neighborhood, and they even added us into group chats, like more than 300 residents, and they will report to each other regarding the sightings of the monkeys happening around it. Like, these are the dusky langurs, and they will talk about it, they will joke about it, but all these are very good for them to inform each other regarding the location of the monkeys, so that the neighbors would take strategies to avoid any monkeys coming into their rooms by closing windows and closing doors. So we're recently working with influencer in order to try to reach out with new audience, and we realized that this is very important because we gain a lot of new followers from a different demographic, and they would leave comments in our contents or even messenger inbox that they learn something new, and they realize that this is something that they want to get involved of. So it's very important to do not be afraid to reach out to new audience. And these are just some of the important stakeholders from the government and also from the collaborators that we're working with in order to propose for helps partnership and collaboration to sustain for upcoming years to come. And some of these collaborators, we have been working together since the founding of Langur Project Penang when I was working on my PhD until now, and I really appreciate the collaboration at the community level. So this is one of the quotes that I would always tell people, especially the first line: the way we act and behave impacts one another. So it's very important to think twice before you act and behave, because living in harmony requires cooperation, and discovering creative coexistence with our wildlife neighbors is a great approach for each and one of us to become compassionate and understanding. All right, so this is the end of my presentation. I would like to invite all of you to scan this QR code, and you're able to go to our link tree. And in our link tree, there are various environmental education materials that I hope that it will be useful for all of you. All right, thank you so much. I'm done.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jolene. That is incredible presentation. And it's really incredible, the work of Langur Project Penang, and also sharing the importance of science communication and how it really supports the conservation effort. Is truly incredible. And I love the illustration. I love the presentation. And also, I believe that the incredible works that you do are true example that there is a will, there is a way. And I see the questions are rolling. So let's moving on to the panel discussions. Brooke and Ko, it's your time.
Hi there. Thank you both so much. Really good presentations, and the work that you do is amazing. And obviously there are a lot of similarities between a lot of parallels between what you're doing, but the context is obviously quite different. So hopefully we'll get into talking about that a little bit. But a lot of the questions that came in could equally apply to either of you, and it would be good to get your feedback on, both of your feedback on both of them, excuse me. But this first one is specifically for Pranitha. And the question is, how do you discuss the belief that feeding macaques brings good fortune in a way that's respectful of people's cultural practices and religious beliefs? So finding the balance between, the work that we know is going to benefit the macaques and the people ultimately, and this, which is also very important. Can you speak on that?
Yes, of course. I think this was a very tricky situation for us, because while it can be sensitive, it can also become an aggressor for people when religion comes into play, especially when it's so deep-rooted. The approach that I am using is when I talk to people who have these very deep-rooted beliefs, the first thing I do is I show them the macaques and I show them, can you see this macaque? Can you see its stomach? Do you see what's happening? And a lot of them are actually under the impression that macaques with big stomachs are pregnant. And I have to, take the time and say, but that is actually a male. And you see, they've all had babies, and this is the breeding season, and this is not the time, or this other time is when they'll have babies. And then do you see what's happening with their skin? Do you see how they're struggling to move? And my approach is that the gods that we worship, we are unintentionally harming them. I have to explicitly tell them we are not blaming people. We are not in the business of blaming people. What we want is that this is a problem. We want the macaques that we so love and worship to be healthy. And then the conversation starts. It doesn't always go as intended. It doesn't always go in the right direction. It doesn't always give us the right result, but it opens up a conversation. And I have to tell them, they usually stay. So when in our temple structures, we have different layers and levels that monkeys stay in. And I have to show them. So this macaque is really obese and he's unable to climb all the way and he's just left. So using a little bit of those human sentiments that they're left alone, that, the troop cannot take him up with them and we're harming them. And then they say, okay, then what is your idea? Because we don't think they have any food to eat. And then we say, but we have to make sure that, we have enough diet species. And then it proceeds into showing them, can you see the macaque that's eating the leaf? Can you see the macaque that's eating the fruit? And then when they eat the fruit, they disperse the seeds. And then you see they're actually eating leaves. They like fresh leaves. So it's a process. It's a show and tell mostly, and doesn't always go how we want it to. But this is the approach that I usually take.
Great. And Jolene, do you face similar issues there with deep-seated cultural practices and religious beliefs?
Yes, similar as well. Religious beliefs in terms of encouraging human macaques or negative interaction is something that we're looking forward to do. To approach, to try different strategies in order to work with the different, like, for example, people of various religious background in tackling this issue. For now, our work is focused a lot on science communication and environmental education due to the workload as well as the team members that we have at the moment. However, this is something that we are looking at because we already have some information and data here and there while doing ethnography with people from the temples of different types of background that we face. Yep.
Thank you for the answer. We have a lot of questions coming in, and I'm sorry we cannot get to all of them. But a lot of people are interested in your canopy bridge, Jolene, in Penang. And there's one question about what does it do? Like, what's the function of the bridge? But to keep it relevant to this theme, to the theme of our talk today, can you talk about how do you get citizen science to collect data to decide where to install the bridge, and how do you get the government to give you the permit and all the kind of logistics here?
All right, thanks for the question, Call. So basically, when I started the proposal of the first canopy bridge, it was along a coastal roadway which surrounded the ecotourism sites nearby. So when I was collecting data on the road crossing behavior, road ecology studies of the dusky langurs around that site, it came to me that I need to do something more than just collecting data of the behavior of the monkeys and publish a thesis. So I started to approach ecotourism sites. That was the first approach, and get their supports. And then from there, it's all about bumping into different doors, because Malaysia don't have a guideline in terms of installing or even propose for a canopy bridge around the coastal roadway. So I basically had to start from the bottom by knocking on doors and find the right people from different authority departments, like in this case would be the road department, council, as well as forestry and wildlife departments, in order to get their letter of support at least, and also approval in order to get the canopy bridge up. That was the story of the first bridge. It was much more summarized compared to the second bridge, actually. For the second bridge, it was installed in a residential area. So when you think of a residential area, you have people from different resident association and different neighborhoods, right? So it takes a lot of on-ground work in terms of following the monkeys and getting urban sighting data from the community members by being in their group chat and encourage them to report to us on a daily basis, and also about their perceptions and thoughts. Because when we are working on a negative human and primates interaction at the urban areas, some voices can be very loud, even though those voices are the minorities. You get what I mean? Like, for example, there may be 3 people who say that I hate those monkeys and I want them dead. Seriously, we encountered such comments before. I'm sure Pranita will resonate a lot. And however, those 5 to 6 voices, it doesn't represent the 300 residents around the area. So it's very important to be patient and take times, even though their expectation from the resident association keep telling you that you need to solve the issue. The monkeys are keep coming to my house. And we realized that the best way to engage with the residents is still being there like multiple times per week, being there and let them to see that you're doing groundwork that benefit the community. So from the days and months of ethnography, we combined with the road crossing behavior of the dusky langurs, and we proposed it to the local assemblyman. And it was a success because they realized that it could be something other than trap translocation and culling strategies that we can consider. And so it takes a lot of negotiation and also strategies in order to get the canopy bridge up. So when people say that one canopy bridge is so easy, just get the rope up there. However, behind that is a year of hard work, at least a year of negotiation and field work. And for Macaques, initially for the bridges, we installed it for the dusky langurs, and then Macaques, they utilize it almost immediately for the first bridge, just 3 days after post-installation. So they are so adaptable and they are so mischievous, and I like to see how they social on the canopy bridge as well. And I feel that all this could be the footages for storytelling, which able to tell people that they are so much alike to us in terms of the threats and the challenges that they face, and we should respect them by co-sharing spaces with them at least.
I think a lot of people admire you for that. Can I just get a quick follow-up? How do you expect to scale it up? How do you because you are one team, but to get the canopy bridge and other communities to do the same thing in their residential area or their urban area, how do you scale that up?
It's a huge challenge because maybe this is the mentality of most people on the ground that living around residential area, that others would do it for you. Yeah, it's always like this, right? Others would do it. Yeah, but however, it's very important to identify the local heroes from different communities types. We are just there as a mediator. Yeah, we're there to facilitate, we're there to encourage and empower. And if we're able to identify local heroes from different communities, and we just hope for the best that the ball will keep rolling. Yeah, it's a huge challenge to identify the right people in different parts of Peninsular Malaysia in order to keep this rolling, but we're still trying our best.
So this question really is for both of you. And I guess we'll start with Pranita because Jolene was last speaking. And it's about funding. I know that for grassroots groups, capacity is a huge problem. Resources are a huge problem. How do you start? Where do you even start with funding? Can you give us a bit of that background?
Yes, very exhausting process, not gonna lie. I usually start with applying for a lot of grants, and my sincere suggestion from what I've learned is to also look for grants specifically that are international, that are outside of your state, outside of your country, because they do care. As much as it hurts to say that, people living right next to these animals may not care as much as somebody outside of the country might, and they would think these are novel solutions to issues that we face every day. So a lot of grant writing. And for us, especially in India, the central governments have specific grants for environment and research monitoring and engagement. So it's difficult to get them initially because they want every nonprofit to be at least 3 years of age since their registration. So it's a little difficult. It's a little bit of, an uphill process, but they do have grants. And the other thing that we do is ask for donations from people. And we also conduct education programs. So we provide services, we provide consultations. I do it personally, we do it through my organization. So anything that can bring an income. I think one of my biggest learnings has also been to have multiple sources of income and donations and funding coming in, because at some point, if one of them gets cut off, then you have another thing and your project can keep going and the people that are working with you can, have that job security.
Jolene, what about you?
All right. So a majority of the funding in LPP is from international and corporate grants. And we were fortunate enough that last year we gotten a 3 years contract from a corporate bank in Malaysia. However, it's not really like a super huge amount they're able to cover all the overhead expenses of our organization. And when I was doing my master's and PhD, I park all the expenses and the grants of my project under a NGO, which is the Malaysian Primatological Society. But since I graduated, I actually registered LPP into enterprise. Yeah, so because I'm aiming towards being an accredited social-based enterprise in Malaysia. Yeah, one of the reasons behind this is I wanted to show that there's various ways in doing conservation, especially in providing more hope for the youth nowadays. As in Malaysia, by working in NGOs or even conservation scenes, you don't really get a lot of salary, and sometimes you don't really get a lot of respect as well. And however, youth such as Jielong, Hui Yi, and Joey's, all these young Malaysians are rising up, and so they're able to change more mind and perceptions regarding how people think about charity work or even wildlife conservation work as something that is impactful, not just being so free and nothing to do in Malaysia. Yeah, so right now we're unable to receive donation, unfortunately. Yeah, however, we are surviving by for last year when we did the audit, we were like 65% of the revenue is from the grants, and 35% is actually from the merchandise and the services that we provide. So we organize tours and trips for schools, as well as we have long-term collaboration with international schools, as well as a corporate company, in order to have us as the CSR partners. And we also work with schools to organize fundraising activities, like, for example, a payment in exchange of a service or merchandise, or something fun in return. Like, for example, one interesting thing would be last year, because we were short of like around 10K ringgit in installing the recent canopy bridge. So we collaborated with the international school and we spoke with the assistant principal, and he agreed to organize a fun run for the school children and the adults. And we organize it in a nearby hill where the participants would pay 5 ringgit to 10 ringgit in order to participate in the fun run, in order for them to help install the canopy bridge. So after the run is over, and then we managed to gather the funds, and then once the bridge was erected, they have their student representative come over to witness the whole installation of the bridge. And this gave a sense of empowerment to the students to wanting to do more in contributing towards wildlife conservation volunteerism. Because I saw one of the questions from Rick, right, regarding some people wouldn't want to be a volunteer, but they still want to get involved in various ways. So I think it's very important for us to be creative in thinking of what are the easy way, because people want the easy way, right? What are the easy way for people to get involved, instead of have them to get involved for a certain period of time, because people are different. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm sorry, this will have to be the last question because we are running out of time. But I was going to ask Rick's question about not being able to commit, not being able to volunteer. But I want to combine this and turn it into with other people's question about how do you get people with no conservation background or biology background and talk to people who also, so basically, how do you get citizens to advise each other, to watch each other, who might not have the scientific background to be able to, you know what I mean? For example, not keeping primates as pet, how do you get citizens to like keep each other's watch out? Pranita, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So thank you. That's a very interesting question. And personally, I don't think you need to be a biologist or a conservationist to work in conservation or to make a difference. A lot of citizen science projects, including iNaturalist, where you see a species and then you make a note of it and it adds to the data collection and you click a picture. A lot of them don't really have people coming from an academic background in the subject itself. So it's absolutely possible. All you have to do, I think, is just be a little interested, learn as you go, volunteer with reliable organizations, volunteer with your local animal shelters, go out to the projects, talk to more people, and if nothing, spread the word. If you cannot be there in person, spread the word, talk to more people, keep educating them, and you can integrate a lot of conservation practices into everyday life. So not watching cruelty content, not getting birds, wild animals, birds, reptiles, anything as pets, helping neuter dogs and cats near you so they don't have a negative impact on your native wildlife, not feeding animals. So there's a lot of things that people can do. You don't necessarily have to be a biologist or come from a conservation academic background. So it's just the little bit of willingness. And the major hurdle I think I've seen to that is people feel like it's just me, it's just one person. Will the policies really change? Will it really have a big impact? But it does. Every person who thinks that, it'll snowball into movements. So yeah.
Maybe I can add on a little bit about my very blurry question. So when people want to start a community engagement and they don't have the scientific background, who would be the easier way to get in? Like, is it easier to start with children, students at school, or easier with the retiree hikers in the recreational park, or easier with to approach people with the resources, with money, who can donate to you? Maybe who do you suggest people approach first if they don't have the relevant experience?
I think
I
it depends.
all right. So sorry.
Sorry. No, I'm really sorry. Please go ahead, Jolie.
Sorry, Jolene.
All right, thanks. I feel that for community engagement parts, it applies to all different types of people. And for us, I wouldn't think the way that you just asked, like, for example, who to approach first, because this is very subjective, right? It depends on the targeted species and the targeted habitat types and the people that you want to work with as well. And for us, I think it's very important, I think Pranita would agree as well, is to provide an opportunity. Yeah, like a simple advert or a simple, easy solution. And if able to work with a computer scientist and come up with like a more augmented reality types, like games types of urban sightings way for people to report about the location of the monkeys around their hometown, it will be very accessible to people who love such thing. And for us, we started to collect urban sighting data regarding monkey distribution around Peninsular Malaysia since the beginning of COVID. Yeah, so we just provide them a very easy and accessible way in terms of providing information to us, which is through multiple different platforms of social media. So I feel that community engagement can be done in different types of methods and strategies. It doesn't mean that need to be very targeted in certain types of community unless it's a long-term or longer-term project. And so it should be very inclusive and accessible to everyone around. And for people who have no accessibility to internet, or even they don't have any skills in terms of navigating with technology, like for example, a senior citizen, and we would be there on the ground to talk to them and go in to have a cup of coffee, a cup of tea in exchange of merchandise to get more information regarding their thoughts and their observation with the private neighbors that they live along.
Thank you so much.
I think we should probably go back to Amanda now and say goodbye, because we are, of course, a bit over time. Amanda, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's a really great discussion. And thank you so much for Dr. Jolene and Pranita. Good luck for your next project. And maybe I just want to say something as we wrap up this session. Let's take a moment to reflect on the power of grassroots effort and community-driven conservation. It's clear that with passion, collaboration, and commitment to change, we can achieve victories that pave the way for a brighter future for all species. And thank you for joining us. Let's continue to support and uplift this vital initiative across Asia. And back to you, Alsila.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Ko, and to Brooke as well. That was a very engaging and insightful session. And dear guest, if you agree with me or disagree with me with my statement just now, whether it was engaging or not, or if you would like to leave a feedback about this session or about AFA Connect in general, we would love to hear from you. So please head over to this form where you can QR code scan it, or you can even click on the link provided in the chat and have it filled after this. Dear audiences as well, we would like to take this opportunity to share with you our upcoming and last AfA Connect event for this year. Closing with the theme, Communication Matters, a United Movement. The fourth AfA Connect is scheduled on the 12th to 13 November 2024. Registration will be open soon. For more information, please log on to asiaforanimals.com/connect. This year, we also have some exciting in-person events, such as the Asia Farm Animal Day, scheduled for October 9 to 11 in Hanoi, Vietnam. Registration is now open, and if you'd like to learn more about the conference, please go to asiafarmanimalday.com. Sorry, I thought there was something else after that, but yes, please go to asiafarmanimalday.com. Also, from the Farm Animal Coalition, the third regional event is happening in India, so location and date will be confirmed soon. As for 2025, we have the Asia for Animals Conference Taipei 2025 happening from August 25th to 29th at Taipei, Taiwan. So if you'd like to know more about our events, please head to asiaforanimals.com/events. And if you like, you can subscribe to our mailing list to get the latest information about our events. Aside from events, we have our Asia for Animals podcast, which was just launched this year. And I would recommend to give them a listen. We have guest speakers from around the world sharing their experiences and updates. You can check the podcast at asiaforanimals.com/podcast. And ladies and gentlemen, you can hear the music, which means this is the conclusion, or no, this is how we're going to conclude our event today. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, for those who joined us yesterday and today as well. So we hope to see you again in AfA Connect 4 in November this year, or in any of our upcoming in-person events. And how they say it in Japanese, sayonara, aemashou. Goodbye, everyone, and have a good day ahead. Bye-bye.